Hi everybody and welcome. This is Daniel Gray. I am your Trailer Park Prophet coming at you live on Blog Talk Radio from beautiful downtown Crestone, Colorado. This is Hump Day with the Prophet. This is, of course, August the 6th. Time is marching on. How's everybody doing out there? Looks like we got some summer weather finally here in Crestone, Colorado. One of the first days that we haven't had rain and or a little bit of snow up in the high country, up around 14,000 feet. But at any rate, everything's really green. Everything's going really good. I'm glad you're here today. It doesn't seem like a whole lot is going on out there in the world, or at least what we know about it. Of course, the Middle East is in disarray. A lot of people dying, suffering, being tortured, being forced out of their homes, and that's always a tragic thing, probably more tragic than we could ever imagine. You know, it almost seems like what's going on in the Middle East is like a bad dream. You know, now that we have the internet and we have more sources of information to find out what's going on in our world, we have so much information that it almost seems like it's two-dimensional, like it's actually the stuff that we're looking on the internet. You know, it's hard to really put a warm face on some of the tragedy that's going on in the Middle East. You know, you know what I mean? You become kind of insensitive after a while, or maybe you're desensitized or something. You start to think, my God, you know, oh, another 100 people dead there, another 250 dead there, 100,000 people homeless because of the Syrian war or other wars that are going on in the Middle East and Africa. And there's just so much information about so much of the carnage and so much of the heartache and just basic savage treatment of human beings across the planet that you can only be affected so much. I mean, if you allow a lot of this news that's going on where churches and mosques and various schools and hospitals are being bombed and people are hurt and people have to look at that carnage, I mean, the damage to the human psyche is immense. And it's just hard sometimes, I think, to get your mind around exactly how horrible the world is outside of the United States. And I mean, we have our own type of carnage. We have a lot of carnage going on in Chicago and Detroit and Philadelphia. I mean, every week now there's 13, 14, 15 people get shot in Chicago. And that's a horrible and terrible thing. And I guess we have to add that to the heap of stuff that goes on in the world that is very much the world as it is in their world. But it's just hard to relate to it is something that really is in our world. And you know, I don't know what to do. I mean, there's nothing really you can do. You try to keep a handle on what's going on in the world, and a lot of it's bad news, and you report on it, you talk about it, you write about it, you post on your email account, or you post on Facebook or Twitter, you know, your reaction to, you know, this human disaster or another, and you just keep plugging on. I mean, you know what is going on in much of the world is not good, it's not right, and that it affects the psychic of a lot of people. But it's a lot to absorb. I mean, you reach a point where you're overstimulated. You reach a point where you think, my God, you know, this is really horrible, and I just wish there's something that I could do about it. And you can, you know, I mean, being knowledgeable of the truth is probably the biggest thing that you can do, and sharing that truth with other people is probably a charitable effort on your part. I mean, anytime you can help to enlighten people, there's you know, there's a opportunity to make a better world. But you know, we can only help so much. I mean, I think that's probably part of the reason why people don't want bad news, is that they feel helpless to do anything to help out their fellow man. And I guess there's lots of ways to get around that. You can donate money to various charitable causes. You can, you know, you can try and adopt a kid, or, you know, they have all these programs where you can send money and help an individual, and they actually let you know who the kid is. And, you know, I think probably that's the most personal, up close way to try and get yourself involved in a program, or at least some sort of activity that allows you to say, well, you know, it's a terrible world out there, but at least I'm trying to do something. And I guess that's really all you can do, and that's what I try to do here at the Trailer Park Prophet. And sometimes I don't get it right. And I found out today that a story that I was following here locally, a guy, his name is Larry, and he's pretty well known as a guy that does a lot of meth and does a lot of crazy things, but he beat up an old guy out in the Baca, and he had to serve time. I mean, they put him in jail. He had to spend some time in jail before his trial, and he just had a trial. And I just found out that the jury found him innocent. And I feel bad for the old guy that got beat up. His name's Bob Garnett. But then now I know that this guy is out there, and he's roaming the streets of Crestone, Colorado, and I've been writing about him on my Facebook page, and now I imagine I'm sort of a marked man. And I have kind of a sick feeling today that I made a bad mistake by writing about this guy, Larry. But I felt secure that he was going to be convicted. I mean, the cops obviously thought he was a bad actor, or he wouldn't have served any time in jail at all. And he did serve time in jail. And now he's going to be out on the streets, and I imagine he's still going to be doing some meth. And there's every opportunity that, you know, I'm going to be in his sights. So I made a mistake. I made a mistake, and I guess that's how most people feel when they look at what goes on in local politics and national politics and world politics, is that they feel like, well, there's nothing that I can do. And all I can do is protect myself and my family and my pets, and really that's the only thing I could do. And if I want to play the numbers, I should try and minimize my losses and maximize my gains. And if I stay off the public square, that's going to help me minimize my exposure to being ridiculed or have people come out against me or try to do something to ostracize me in society. So I think that people today maybe feel like they need to stand in the shadows, stand on the sidelines, and stay out of the political battles. You know, obviously, I guess I need to learn that lesson myself, because now I've made myself rather vulnerable to people that don't really like me in this town, because one of the things I've done in this town in Crestone is voice my opinion. I've come out against what I think is wrong. I've took stands on issues. I've took stands against people. And really, the more and more I think about it, it probably isn't in my best interest. I'm obviously not maximizing, or I'm not minimizing my exposure to controversy. And basically that's gonna hurt me. So at any rate, that's kind of bad news today. I'm really sad. I just found out by Bob Garnett, he left a message, and that this guy Larry that beat him up got found innocent. And it's just beyond me. I mean, this guy Larry drove out to Bob's house, some 10 miles away, and got in a fight with Bob. Bob's 70 years old. Larry is like 33 years old. Got in a fight with them, beat up this old guy, and here he's found innocent. You know, I mean, I mean, you look at the prima facie aspects of this case, it was premeditated. This guy Larry drove out there. He gets there, and he's on this guy's property, Bob's property, and he gets in a fight with him. He beats him up, and the guy he isn't found guilty. I mean, he did serve some time in jail, but it was only because it was so obvious that this guy had beat him up, and for some reason, I can't get my mind around how a jury couldn't found him guilty, but maybe there's something I don't know. So I guess in a way I owe Larry an apology. I guess I owe myself an apology, but it's certainly going to change a lot in my life. Now I got to be really, really careful where I go. I got to be careful not to be caught alone. And now, thanks to my willingness to believe Bob Garnett and the judicial system, I'm in trouble. All right, but all things shall pass, and I'll be all right. What am I gonna do? I made my bed. Now I'm gonna have to lay in it. All right, moving on. Let's see here. I found this right during show prep, right before we went live. And you know what I should do? I should probably check and make sure that we're actually getting out today. Oh, and by the way, if you want to call into the program, you can do so. Dial 646-716-8506. And let me just do a little quick check here. I want to make sure everything is getting out. A little sound check. And thanks to Blog Talk Radio, I can easily do that. It gives me a sense of confidence knowing that my voice is getting out there and that I'm not just talking to my computer screen. Okay, so here we go here. We're going to find out here in just a minute. So, let's see. Blog Talk Radio is conducting research to better understand and meet the needs of our users of their site. Would you like to participate? I mean, here's the other thing I really like about Blog Talk, man. They really reach out to all their announcers like yourself here, the Trailer Park Prophet, and they really want to know how things are going with your program, and they want to know what they can do to help you out. And it really helps. You know, you can go and, I mean, they even have blog. They even have like Blog Talk University, and they have Blog Talk classes. Blog Talk classes, and you know, they're doing a little questionnaire trying to find out how people feel about the service of Blog Talk, what they could do to make it better. And I'm really quite fond of Blog Talk, and I think that it would behoove you to find somebody in your community to start their own Blog Talk Radio program, or you don't even need to be that sophisticated. I mean, today's computers, all of them have a internal recording system, and you can record a program and then put it on Facebook. And that's the other thing too. I would suggest your community getting out there and putting together a page on Facebook, and be able to have the community have, which is basically a political forum, a political square, and they're able to express their opinions and keep people apprised of what's new and what's going on in the community. And I think stuff like that is a really good thing to do, and become a community journalist, a citizen journalist like the Trailer Park Prophet. And it may not be your bailiwick, but there's probably somebody in your circle of friends, your circle of acquaintances that have a gift for gab, and you appreciate their steadiness, and you appreciate their opinions, and so here you go. I mean, there's people out there, and we just really need more citizen journalists. I don't see how we're going to be able to save this country if people don't get out of their comfort zone and start standing up, speaking up, and being counted. and I know I'm kind of contradicting myself here. I mean, I'm an admitted individual who is on the public square, and I made some mistakes, and I might have to pay for them. But you know what? Freedom's not free of responsibility, and it's not free of the chance of confrontation. And so, you know, what are you going to do? You know, you got to be brave. You got to stand tall. Otherwise, eventually, I believe that this country could very well go down the tubes, and we're going to lose a lot of our rights and a lot of our liberties. But it takes more than just a handful of people in your community really caring and being able to stand up and speak truth to power. All right. Again, if you want to call into the program, 646-716-8506. All right, moving on here. I found this one story here from, what is that? Where is it?
Through August 29th, get up to $150 with our new checking account offer to sweeten up your me time.
Oh my God!
It's another reason to go west. Bank of the West.
Where? That's actually my bank. Why? I don't know why. Where did that come from? Huh. I'm using Google Chrome now, and I don't know, maybe something weird is going on with that. And okay, so this is something that this really kind of startled me. I got this from BizPack, and it's the BizPack review. And a New Jersey cop said to a citizen, quote, "If Obama doesn't have to follow the Constitution, we don't have to either." And I actually have a video here. I haven't listened to it, but holy mackerel, that's what it says. And the quote here is, the video was posted Monday by activists trying to bring charges to the Helmeta Regional Animal Shelter in New Jersey, which they claim have been violating state health codes. The activists maintain a Facebook page where they post public records, exchange information, and provide updates on development. So, you know, that's exactly what I was talking about earlier, is that, you know, here's a group, they're animal activists, but you know what? They're organized and they're trying to get their message out. And I have respect for anybody that does that. So anyway, these people from Meta, I can't remember what that stands for. They're people that are trying to protect animal rights. Having a conversation with a New Jersey cop. So let's have a listen here.
I have major objections of what's going on over at the shelter there. My First and Fourth Amendment rights were violated. My civil rights were violated.
Because Obama has decimated the freaking Constitution. So I don't give a damn, because if he doesn't follow the Constitution, we don't have to.
It's New Jersey case law.
Yes, you don't have.
Did you get that?
Yeah.
He doesn't have to follow the Constitution.
Our president.
Can you say that one more time? I'm not sure I heard it clearly.
Obama has decimated the freaking Constitution. So I don't give a damn, because if he doesn't follow the Constitution, we don't have to.
It's New Jersey case law.
Just tell me that one more time so I completely understand what you just said.
Obama has decimated the freaking Constitution. So I don't give a damn, because if he doesn't follow the Constitution, we don't have to.
You know, you're aware of your rights and everything like that. So, you're talking about a property?
This is public property. This is owned by the municipality.
Okay, and there's something called defiant trespassing.
On public property?
You go into the building.
That's public property as well.
Okay, so listen.
Why am I being banned from going in the building?
Explain it. You don't want to talk? I'm not going to talk to you.
I just asked you a question. Can I have your badge number and your name, please?
You can read my name.
You could also spell it out for me, too.
My First and Fourth Amendment rights were violated. My
Don't touch me. Either get out, or you're going to get locked up.
escort out before you. Officer, please don't touch me.
All right, man.
We are getting escorted out.
Thank you.
You guys are absolutely ridiculous.
So, what's that mean? Well, I'm not sure. I never envisioned something like that ever happening, where a police officer would actually say, well, Obama doesn't follow the Constitution. He's obliterated the Constitution, so I don't have to follow the Constitution. I mean, that's rather mind-boggling, isn't it? And I wonder how many other people out there feel the same way. And I wonder how many other government employees feel the same way. Hey, Obama does whatever the hell he wants to, so we're going to do whatever the hell we want to. And why wouldn't they say that? Why wouldn't they think that? You know, it seems like a pretty natural progression in the thinking of government employees who have to follow the rules, have to follow the laws. And if they see the president not following the law, ruling by executive fiat, I could see where they'd say, well, fine, we don't have to follow the Constitution either. If you're not going to take the top official of the land to court for not following the Constitution, why should we? And he may have been flipping, although I sat here and watched this on my YouTube, or not, this says, oh, well, it is on YouTube, but I found this on my Facebook page, and he may have been a little bit flipping, but you know what? I really don't think he was. I mean, I guess part of him was being a little flippant, but really he was quite secure in stating that he didn't have to follow that New Jersey cop didn't have to follow the Constitution because Obama does it. And it kind of shows you what a dangerous precedent has been set in this country in regards to President Obama and his executive fiat, his ruling by executive fiat. It's very dangerous. It's a dangerous world. In other words, we're slowly, incrementally turning into a chaotic state. We're turning into anarchy. If we don't have laws and we don't have the law enforcement ability to enforce our laws, then every day we're creeping closer and closer to anarchy. And particularly the cops. I mean, no one is closer to the effects of lawless behavior than the police. And the police raise that right hand and swear to uphold the laws of the country, the laws of their state. And if they begin to feel like, well, I'm not going to follow the laws. I don't have to follow the laws. The president doesn't have to follow the laws. Then we are slipping into anarchy. And it makes you wonder, you know, where does it end? Okay, here. Man, I'm sorry. That just kind of blew my mind. That really did. And really, if you think about it, Lois Lerner with the IRS, she felt like she didn't have to follow the laws, and that's why they targeted conservative groups. That was against the law. Using the government to go after your political detractors, that's scary. You know, that's Nazi Germany right there. And the media is complicit. You would hope the media would be saying, no, wait a minute, we're here to protect the rights of the people. And you're going to follow the law, you're going to follow the Constitution, because we're going to report on it. And we're going to make sure that others know about it. And we're gonna push the political actors around to do something about it, but there's none of that. Everything that goes on in this country now seems to go unchecked. It really seems like we're living in a culture of corruption. It almost feels like the republic is crumbling. And I was listening to Rush today. He was saying that don't panic. He didn't mention this one story. This is exclusive to the Trailer Park Prophet, but Rush Limbaugh said, don't worry. When it's time to panic, I'm going to let you know. Because you gotta ask yourself, you gotta put like a governor on yourself if you're in this reporting business like the Trailer Park Prophet, and you gotta say, okay, man, this is my perspective. I'm just one little organic computer. I'm only one person. I'm only one mind. I'm only one citizen journalist, and you gotta you got to almost imagine that you're going to get some things wrong. You're not going to get it all right. Sometimes your opinions, your viewpoints, your analysis is going to be wrong. And when it is wrong, then you're going to have to step back and apologize and recalibrate and move forward. But I don't think I'm wrong here. I have a sickening feeling that this country is headed in the wrong direction. And in a way, it really alarms me. But I'm going to take faith in people like Rush Limbaugh that there's no reason to panic. And Rush says, when it's time to panic, I'll let you know. And that's part of being a citizen journalist. You got to have faith and trust in some of our leaders out there. Like I have a lot of faith in Alan West. Alan West said that we don't have to worry about the National Defense Authorization Act. Remember, there was a lot of controversy about that and whether or not the federal government could lock people up without reading them rights or having counsel or being able to have their day in front of a judge. And Alan West says that that's not the case, that the National Defense Authorization Act doesn't have that language in there. But yet, still today, after how many years has that been in? Like 2 years, we're still hearing stories about how the federal government has the ability to lock you up without due process. In fact, we got a story today, we'll get to it later on in the program, about a presidential power that would allow the president to lock people up without due process. And if this is the case, we're devolving. It's devolution. Oh, good news in Colorado. This story just hit the newspapers. Hit the media, I should say. Newspapers are so blasé. Newspapers, I call them the dead tree news. And it says, Colorado peak politics, Colorado's conservative bully pulpit. And the headline is, behind the scenes of the fracking deal, how a country boy from Sterling made a liberal oligarch blink. And this is really big news. And I reported about how there were these constitutional amendments that were being proposed in Colorado to limit the availability of fracking or to limit fracking. And there was 2 for fracking and 2 against fracking, 2 initiatives. You know, you got to go around and get signatures from the people and it gets on the ballot. Well, somehow, some way, there's been a fracking deal worked out, and according to this, it seemed to come out of nowhere Monday. But the one thing stopping well, basically what happened is all the parties with the pro-fracking and the environmentalists against fracking got together, and they decided that they would pull their initiatives and put together a special committee. And there'd be environmentalists and politicians and people from the oil industry, and that they would work out some details for rules and regulations regarding fracking. So this is really a big deal that they were able to get the environmentalists to back down. I'm really quite surprised that happened. And that's not to say that it won't happen again, that there won't be other initiatives in other election cycles, but at least during this election cycle, they were able to get cooler heads to prevail and work out some kind of agreement. And I was really kind of worried about this because I was worried that they were going to be able to outlaw fracking. And here in Colorado, we have what's called a 3-legged economic stool, is the way they put it. And one leg is mining and minerals, the other is tourism, and then the third one is agriculture. And we need our energy development. It's one of our legs on our economic stool. And I saw this leg being pulled out, and would cause a lot of problems with a lot of governments around the state, because the way our mineral development legislation works, or our mineral development laws work, is that if you're, say, drilling for oil in Arapahoe County, a percentage of the proceeds from that oil go to the county and the school district, and of course it filters down to all the municipal governments. But in some of these mountain counties, if it wasn't for mining, they wouldn't have any revenue to run their governments, to pay for their schools. So I saw that as a real problem if they outlawed fracking. But the environmentalists are all over everything. I mean, they're all over agriculture, they're all over ranching, and you know, they keep going after all of these. You know, they're trying to make more and more endangered species. Like in Gunnison, they have the sage grouse, and they want to make it a endangered species, even though the sage grouse in Gunnison is flourishing. In fact, they take sage grouses from Gunnison and transplant them back in areas that have lost their sage grouse. But it's the environmentalists that want to get them designated as an endangered species, and all the government officials say, well, hey, you know what, they're not endangered, in fact they're flourishing. But after the environmentalists get some sort of a designation, whether it's the snail darter in California or the field mouse in Texas, then that halts all energy development, all cattle, all farming. And it's like the environmentalists are using the environment to ruin the economy, and just destroy our way of life. And I'm sorry, you know, like the snail darter, you know, that was the reason why they cut off all the irrigation water into California, you know, the big breadbasket of California, and it's been devastating. It's cost a lot of jobs. It's meant we've had to import more food, which a lot of times could be tainted with God knows who knows what. And then all of these farmers have gone bankrupt, and their property is worthless, and it's because of a little snail darter. And that, you know, I mean, I'm sorry, I think the world is going to do just fine without the snail darter. So again, big news in Colorado. The initiatives, the initiative 121 was pulled, and we're not going to have initiative 88 or 89. I guess there's only 3 initiatives. And so that's big news. It was worked out behind the scene. I'm really surprised that this happened. You know, I'm going to have to look more into this story, because this truly is a big story. And it's just kind of good news. And this was just published today on the Colorado Peak Politics, so everyone in Colorado is going to be talking about this. And there's going to be a lot of environmentalists that are going to be really mad. But it was interesting, you know, because the Democratic governor in Colorado, Hickenlooper, he was very much against those anti-fracking proposals, because he knew that it was going to be devastating to our Colorado economy. So I got to give some kudos to Governor Hickenlooper for staving off these draconian fracking laws. But gosh almighty, man, the people that are against fracking are almost rabid about it. You know what I mean? God, they're like crazy. They hate fracking with every fiber of their body, and it makes them kind of demented in a way. All right, we're at the bottom of the hour. You're listening to the Trailer Park Prophet, Daniel Gray, on Blog Talk Radio, coming at you live from beautiful downtown Crestone, Colorado. This is Hump Day with the Prophet, August 6th. Summer's ticking along. Tick, 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 tick. Nice to have a little warmth. If you want to call into the program, you can do so by dialing 646-716-8506. All right, let's see. What's our next story? Oh, this should have been the lead story. We reported on Monday that, I believe we reported on Monday, that a general had been killed in Afghanistan. His name is Major General Harold Greene, and he was killed in Afghanistan. And of course, our thoughts and prayers are with the family of Major General Harold Greene, but it was a really bad deal. Harold Greene was in a secured area, sort of the school for training Afghani police and soldiers, and some Afghani hid a machine gun and pulled it out and killed the general, and I believe he shot 16 or 17 other people in Afghanistan. And I think we might even have a little video here from Fox News. Maybe not. I thought there was a video here. But that, you know, this is really sad. And I wonder if the Obama administration put some kind of rules in place to allow this to happen, because in case you didn't know, President Obama and the Obama administration have been making it more and more dangerous for our soldiers to operate in Afghanistan, and the Obama administration has changed the rules of engagement, and you have to call in to return fire, and a bunch of stuff that really seems kind of ridiculous. Like they're no longer allowed to shoot at a house, even though there could be fire coming out of the house, you know, stuff like that. And I wonder if this was one of those deals where maybe the Obama administration said that just because a Afghani soldier's inside an American compound doesn't mean they can't carry a weapon, you know, stuff like that. But this is really a sad state of affairs, that this, you know, really nice looking guy here, this General Harold Greene, is now dead. And I just can't imagine the grief that his family's going through. And why are we even in Afghanistan anymore, is, especially under this president, is it's kind of a mystery to me. But, you know, I honestly think that President Obama doesn't like the military, doesn't like the U.S. military, and I think part of the reason he's done all these changes to the rules of engagement in Afghanistan is, I hate to say this, but I think President Obama wants to see our military personnel killed. He wants to see our military knocked down a notch. And I really think that President Obama is anti-American. And I think if you ask President Obama who he favored more, Christianity or Islam, he would say Islam. I really do. All right, we got a video here. I just found this. This is from NDTV. Caught on camera, a Hamas squad assembles and fires a rocket right across the street from a reporter's room in Gaza. Watch the exclusive report from the New Delhi television. All right, New Delhi television. Who would have thought? Only here on the Trailer Park Prophet Show. All right, let's see.
Okay, so we are witnessing something very, very unusual in this plot of land, abandoned plot of land right next to our hotel. A blue tent has come up. It wasn't there last night. It came up just this morning, and there have been two men moving in and out of it. Now, by reasonable doubt, it's fair to guess that this is a potential Hamas rocket launching site that's being set up. There's always been this question of how Hamas manages to fire its rockets without being detected by the Israelis. This perhaps is one of the ways of assembling it under a tent. It also establishes something which Hamas has always been accused of, that they actually use densely populated civilian areas to fire their rockets. And if the camera zooms out a little more, you'll see that this is an area very heavily built up, a lot of residential and hotel buildings all around. And so if Hamas does fire a rocket from here, it will have immediate consequences for everyone around here. And I also must report at this point that the first night when we came here, we did see, or rather hear, a rocket go off exactly at that plot of land, and the hotels opposite us were evacuated because the Israelis sent a warning that there might be a strike on them. That didn't happen, but if Hamas uses this site once again to launch a rocket, we're not sure what's going to happen. So now, as you can see, the tent has been removed. Whatever they were doing under the tent is clearly over. We also find that there are not two individuals, but three who are behind this particular activity, and they've placed a sort of a bush on top of whatever they've buried under the sand, and also they're using a spade to cover it up with mud, and it looks like they're prepared to leave. But of course, during this whole process, they were running some cables out from under the tent to somewhere at the back, and it now remains to be seen whether if this is indeed a Hamas rocket launch site, that they're going to use it to detonate it remotely. We can see one of the men leaving. He's got something on his head. He just looks like he's coming out either onto the road or he's gone behind the tree there. The other guy is standing behind the tree. Again, as I said, this is a very, very unusual sight to actually witness in Gaza. The possibility that we're seeing Hamas setting up for a rocket launch just meters away from our hotel, and again, as I point out, bang in the middle of what is a residential area full of hotels and apartment buildings.
Wow.
The rocket being fired today morning, a day after it was assembled at the exact spot the rocket has been fired. That's the smoke. We just shot a video of it in the immediate aftermath.
Okay, so we're heading to the spot where we saw the rocket from being fired. It seems to be in an open plot of land, but we're being asked by people not to go to the location. So we're just pulling back. And we're just heading back because some journalists there, as you can see, have waved to us saying not to go there. Okay, so we're not actually going in there because it's been rightly pointed out to us that there could be an immediate Israeli retaliation to the rocket that was fired from here. But as we've reported, or as we managed to capture on camera earlier, we actually saw that particular rocket silo being placed. But reporting it while we're here in Gaza also has serious security implications for both those around here and also for us, which is why this report might actually have to air earlier. But you can see very clearly this is a very, very dense residential and commercial area, and therefore firing the rocket from here will obviously have serious consequences for those who live here should Israel choose to retaliate. In Gaza, with camera person Sanjay Mandal and Neha Masih, Srinivasan Jain for NDTV.
I just couldn't imagine living under those circumstances. It's beyond belief. It's almost surreal that you have a group of people, Hamas, that hate Jews so much that they will launch rockets into Israel from residential areas, indiscriminately hit God knows who in Israel. And this is their whole activity. That's all Hamas has done for the last, 6 years now. Everything they think about is what they can do to kill Jews. That's all they care about. That's all they care about. And what about the people in Israel? Can you imagine not knowing from day to day, minute to minute, if you're going to have a rocket land on your head, land into your house, wipe out your family, your business? You don't think that has a little play on the Israeli psyche? And the same with Hamas. I mean, the same with the Palestinians. Except Israel does warn them before they have a retaliatory strike. It's just devolution in my mind. Alright, I got this story from Yahoo News. This was announced, I believe, today. Oh yeah, about 23 hours ago. Obama announces a $33 billion aid package to Africa. And it looks like we do have a little bit of a video. It says, seeking to strengthen America's financial foothold on Africa, President Barack Obama announced $33 billion in commitments Tuesday aimed at shifting U.S. ties from Africa beyond humanitarian aid and toward more equal economic partnerships. the bulk of the commitments came from private sector companies. Okay, that's good, including Coca-Cola, General Electric. Underscoring Africa's growing appeal to businesses, the continent is home to 6 of the world's fastest growing economies. I didn't know that. And a rapidly expanding middle class with increased spending power. I'd like to know which countries he's talking about. Yet Obama noted that the U.S. trade with the entire African continent is about the same as its trade ties with Brazil, and that just about 1% of U.S. exports go to sub-Saharan Africa. And, you know, I mean, I want to see the United States and other world powers strengthen their ties with Africa. There's just so much pain and suffering that goes on in Africa, you know, really makes you sad to think that our brothers and sisters in Africa are suffering. And, you know, I think this is probably a good thing. But, you know, one thing I was thinking about is, where does the president get all this money to give to various countries? Because it seems like every week or so the president's out there talking about a aid package to this country or that country. Like, you know, what, 2 weeks ago, President Obama, or rather his administration, announced a aid package to Hamas for $33 million. You know, I wonder, does the president get allotted a certain amount of money, a goodie bag that he can hand out to various countries? Is that part of the budgeting process? Obama every president's given a chunk of cash to hand out as they deem necessary? I don't really know. That's one of those things I would like to find out. So here we have the President of the United States talking about this aid package to Africa. All right, Barack Hussein Obama, take it away. All right, I don't know. This is actually from the AP article written by Julie Pace.
A White House official said President Barack Obama will announce on Tuesday that U.S. businesses have committed to investing $14 billion in construction, clean energy, banking, and information technology projects across Africa. The announcement will occur at the U.S.-Africa Business Forum, part of a 3-day Africa Summit in Washington, and to showcase U.S. interest in improving trade and investment in the region. Obama will take part in a discussion with corporate chief executives and government leaders at the event, which will be attended by Commerce Secretary Penny Pritzker, former New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg, and former President Bill Clinton. The official said the business forum will allow dozens of African heads of state to mingle with U.S. and African executives. It will focus broadly on investment in finance, infrastructure, energy, agriculture, and consumer goods.
Okay, so here's the takeaway. It said that there'd be $14 billion worth of private aid. So you subtract 14 from 33 billion, and you see that the U.S. government's going to be giving Africa about $20 billion. So that's going to come out of our budget. And I have mixed feelings. I definitely want to help Africa, but $20 billion from America that is already strapped. Oh, by the way, did you hear that we're spending more money than the CBO, the Congressional Budget Office, had predicted? So we're going to have an even bigger deficit than what was projected this year. And so, every time you hear about, well, 20 billion here, 100 billion there, 33 million here, it all adds up. Eventually it becomes real money, but we're broke. We're roughly borrowing $1 trillion a year from future generations to be able to fund programs like this. And sometime we're going to pay. And we're already paying. We're paying because we have so much inflation in the economy. That's where we're paying. All right, let's see. If you want to call into the program, you can do so. Dial 646-716-8506. My name is Daniel Gray. I'm the Trailer Park Prophet, coming at you live from Crestone, Colorado. Thank you very much. All right, let's see here. Next story today. Oh, this is rather incredible. This is a Fox News story. And this is from Neil Caboodle's program. He's on Fox Business, and he also has a program on Fox News. But the headline is, Illegal Aliens Make Commercial Demanding Free Health Care. Obamacare, Wake Up America. Illegal aliens make commercial demanding free health care. All right, let's listen to this story. All right, Neil, welcome back to the Trailer Park Prophet Show. How you doing, bro? All right, let's go. All right, we got a little ad here. We got to skip this ad in 2 seconds. All right, here we go. All right, Neil.
Healthcare law isn't already costing some Americans. Now paying for coverage for those who aren't even American? Get ready, it gets worse, so listen up and get prepared. Pay up. Well, maybe the problem was the president promising health care for everyone, because now folks who shouldn't even be here, well, they want it.
I'm undocumented. Soy indocumentada.
I'm undocumented, but I dream that one day we'll all be treated as one people.
Because we are all one people.
We work hard.
And we're strong.
But everyone gets sick sometimes. And yet many of us don't have health care. Cannot get health insurance.
Now our country has spoken.
Saying that everyone should have affordable health care.
Does that mean everyone?
Well, it means every legal American, but that's besides the point. So Michelle Fields, who says land of opportunity, yes. Land of handouts, no. There is a bit of a, pardon my expression, ballsiness to this ad campaign, because it just says, all right, we're here. We might not be here legally. We might be undocumented. But since we are here, we've been here for a long time, we're entitled to the same thing American citizens are. What do you think of that approach? Go on offense.
Well, look, now they're saying that they want free health care, illegal aliens do. But let's get this straight, Neil. There is no such thing as free health care. Money needs to be taken out of someone's paycheck in order to fund this. So now they want to take money out of an American citizen's paycheck and give it to an illegal alien. Neil, that's absolutely crazy. This country should be the land of opportunity, like you said, the land of freedom, of liberty, not the land of free stuff. And that's what this country is turning into. What kind of people are we attracting when we have all of this free stuff? People should want to come here to open a business, not to get free things, and that's what's happening.
I could look at this and say there is the business nerd in me would look at a practical reason for covering them if they might be a big reason why healthcare costs have soared, since we're covering them anyway when they go to the emergency room and you have to provide healthcare. That maybe this is cheaper in the long run. But you could also flip that around and say, well, it encourages more of this same illegal activity in both the short and the long run. What do you say?
I absolutely agree. I think what this is doing is contributing to our immigration system, our poor immigration system. Look, we need immigration reform, comprehensive immigration reform. Right now, we have such a screwed up system that people who want to come here legally and achieve the American dream, it's so hard for them. However, on the other hand, people who want to come here illegally, it's very easy for them. It's almost like we're incentivizing and encouraging them to come here and take advantage of all of these programs. If we want to stop this, we need immigration reform. We don't need to give them free health care and all these freebies. Look at what's happening right now. We're trying to give free health care.
Uh-oh. All right, I don't know what happened there. Uh-oh, Google Chrome not responding. Technical difficulties. Ah, what is going on? Oh, I could just cry. All right, let's see here. Chrome is not responding. I hope I'm still getting out. Let's see, the microphone is still hot. I'm trying to see if I can find Blog Talk Radio. Oh boy. Alright, well, this story I guess is over. Here, I need to get rid of that. Alright, let's see here if I can figure this out. Alright, everybody, just be patient. I don't know if I'm getting out or not right now. Let's see. No, it looks like I'm still getting out on Blog Talk Radio. Let's see. So anyways, you know, from a PR standpoint, I would have told these illegal aliens that this commercial wanting free health care for illegal aliens is not a good idea. And the reason I would say that's not a very good idea is because it's clear by all the polling that around 60% of the people out there in the United States of America... Oh, she's back.
American citizens, and we're seeing health premiums all over the country, including California, where this is being proposed, going up by almost 20%.
Alright, I gotta kill this story. This isn't going so good. Alright, I gotta get rid of you, lady. Let's see, I guess I can just delete this story, and then hopefully we can move on to the next story. But what I did want to say was that I don't think this was a very good move by the illegal aliens, you know, going out there and doing a commercial saying, look, we're here and we want health care because we're one planet, one people. And the main reason being is that 65% of the people out there are against all this illegal immigration. So I think they're gonna hear ads like this, and that is just gonna bolster their opinion, and that's gonna harden their position. So I don't think that was a really good PR move. I mean, it may play good to the La Raza crowd and to the Barack Obama progressive socialist status crowd, but I don't think it's gonna do any good for the movement, the illegal alien movement. But on a related story here, let me see if we have any callers here for a minute. We're right at the top of the hour, and it doesn't look like we have any callers yet. Let me just do a quick station ID. My name's Daniel Gray. I'm the Trailer Park Prophet, broadcasting live on Blog Talk Radio from beautiful downtown Crestone, Colorado. Thanks a lot for being here today. I really appreciate it. I'm glad that I'm back on Skype again. I got that all worked out. Well, I mean, the people at Blog Talk got that all worked out. Now, this story comes from the Conservative Tribune, and I don't mean to pat myself on the back. Oh yeah, I do. I saw this coming. I knew this was going to come. And basically, I'll read this. It says, between the crisis of illegal immigration and the breakout of violence in the Middle East, Americans have been paying slightly less attention lately to the domestic policy that began President Barack Obama's downward slide in the approval polls, his signature legislation, ObamaCare. The original rollout of ObamaCare website was riddled with problems which still haven't been fixed. Both doctors and hospitals began rejecting the program early on, leading to narrower coverage. But basically what this story is talking about is that there are a lot of hospitals, a lot of those, associations, healthcare associations, where they may own several hospitals and a bunch of clinics. Those people are deciding not to accept Obamacare, and they're able to do that within the language of Obamacare, because it's, what the Democrats really wanted, what the House bill for Obamacare was single payer, which means socialism, straight up socialism. So what we have today is sort of a hybrid concoction that is Obamacare, where you have the state exchanges, the federal exchanges, but it allows for individual markets or individual healthcare providing companies to say, hey, we're not going to take Obamacare. And the reason is because of the reimbursement rate of Obamacare is on the same level as Medicare. In case you didn't know, Medicare and Medicaid provide less dollars per fee per service, fee for service. They offer less money than does regular healthcare, private healthcare. So as a business decision, doctors have to say, well, you know what? We can only take so many people that are on Medicaid or Medicare, and in this case, they're saying we can't take anybody from Obamacare, and it's because their reimbursement rate is so low. I mean, the doctors and these various healthcare associations are having to limit the amount of people that don't pay the full cost to provide that health care. And let's see, it says many doctors may not even yet have realized how low the Obamacare reimbursement rates are. As they find out, many more may refuse to accept those plans, especially the top-tier facilities that specialize in hard-to-treat illnesses. And the reason being, in other words, the intrusion of government bureaucrats into the economics of the healthcare system has rendered the system less efficient, leading to shortages. It's classic free market economics and an argument against government intervention in almost anything. And a lot of that information came from the Daily Caller. All right, let's see. Next story. Oh, this is another healthcare story. Now, I know I keep doing this story because I'm just so fascinated that this is really the case, but it's been out there all over that within the language of Obamacare that everyone is going to have to be microchipped. And according to NBC News, all Americans will be microchipped in less than 3 years. Now, it's always this NBC report that gets quoted. And I've seen, I don't know how many articles out there over the last, 6 months, and they always go back to this NBC report, talking about how in Obamacare that everybody's going to have to get the microchip. And I mean, but here it is. Here is, let's see, he is the, I can't think of his name right now. He's the talking head for NBC News, Nightly News. He's the big-time reporter, and I can't think of his name, but here's the report that everybody's been talking about this NBC report saying that Obamacare is going to mandate by the year 2017 that everybody gets a microchip. All right, here we go.
More now of our special coverage here tonight, life in the U.S. in 10 years' time. By that time, there may be all kinds of new ways to safeguard and identify all those things that make each of us unique, our faces, even our fingerprints, even our eyes. Here now with more on the future of technology, NBC's Tom Costello.
The year is 2017. You're rushed to a hospital unconscious with no ID or medical history, but thanks to a microchip under your skin, it's all there. Science fiction 20 years ago, but a biometric reality today.
The technology is based on answering one simple question. Am I who I say I am?
Already, fingerprints and iris scans verify passenger identities at airports. Within 10 years, that technology may be even more widespread. And look for more complex facial recognition programs that scan a crowd of thousands looking for a single terrorist.
Today's facial recognition software starts with the eyes. Then it maps out the contours of the face and compares that against a database of millions, a database that's growing by the day.
What's next? At the University of Bath in England, researchers predict big changes for consumers.
I think it is possible to free us completely of our wallets and keys using biometric technology, if that's what people want in 10 years' time.
In fact, it's already here. The latest home security locks use fingerprints to control deadbolts. And at the Jewel Osco grocery store in Chicago, some customers pay using their fingerprints. No paper or plastic.
You don't really need anything other than your hand, and you already got that with you.
So will future department stores scan our irises, like in the movie Minority Report, then offer products catered to who we are?
Hello, Mr. Yakamoto. Welcome back to the Gap.
Experts say that technology is here now. The challenge is to safeguard our privacy in a brave new world. Tom Costello, NBC News, Alexandria, Virginia.
So here's another example that the headline doesn't match up with the story, because nothing in this story that we've been hearing about, and this is the first time I saw this story, but this is the story that others have used to say that Obamacare mandates that everybody get a chip, but they didn't say that in the report. And so that's why it's interesting sometimes about how you hear these things and people write these very shocking, catching headlines, and then you get into the body of the story and you find out something else. Let's see, there's another video here, but we'll keep following this story. Eventually we'll find out definitively what goes on. Because see, here is the headline. NBC News, all Americans will be microchipped in less than 3 years. Well, you know, that isn't exactly what that story said. This story said people may choose. You know, and of course, the idea, my dog has a microchip, you know, so if she gets lost, somebody picks her up, they'll be able to help her out. You know, they'll be able to, you know, find out, okay, yeah, you belong to Daniel Gray, the Trailer Park Prophet, and it has my phone number, my email, and all of that is in the chip of Bailey Barker. Or actually, the chip, I guess that information isn't in there. The chip has a number. That's right. So they scan this device over my dog's back. They see the dog has a number. Then you look at the list of numbers, and then the list of numbers would give the information that she belongs to me and my contact information. But really, you know, you think about it, having a chip in you that had all your medical information and what drugs you're on and all that is really a pretty good idea. You know, I mean, the chances of you being separated from your ID are pretty good, particularly if there's a fire. I mean, there's a lot of good reasons for eventually having some kind of chip, but I think probably the big scare with having a chip in you is that the government will be able to track you. I mean, they can already track you with your phone, but if it was actually in your skin and they were able to locate you, you know, that's kind of scary stuff. And like in this article, it says, do you believe in the mark of the beast? And that's what a lot of people are referring to, that these chips are a mark of the beast, which is the mark of the beast is something the Bible refers to in the book of Revelation. I don't know. Oh, here's a story I was talking about earlier about the ability of the executive branch to actually arrest somebody. According to the Examiner.com, in a story they published on August 1st, on Thursday, Barack Obama, that's today, signed an executive order that allows for the apprehension, detention, or conditional release of individuals for certain severe acute respiratory diseases, not including influenza. The executive order modifies one signed by, oh my God, what happened here? By an executive order that was signed by George W. Bush. But basically what it would do is it would allow for the president to say, well, you know what, we have this problem with Ebola, and anyone who is presenting with flu-like symptoms should be arrested immediately. And I think that's probably the worry. But like they're saying, this executive order was modified by Barack Obama on Thursday, but it was originally signed by George Bush, that allowed for the detention and quarantine of those with SARS. Here's a little quote here. It says, severe acute respiratory syndromes, which are diseases that are associated with fever and signs and symptoms of pneumonia or other pulmonary diseases, are capable of being transmitted from person to person, and that are either either causing or have the potential to cause a epidemic, or upon the infection are likely to cause mortality. At any rate, I mean, here's another deal where it's hard to really know if this is the real situation or not. And here's another thing too I wanted to bring up. You probably have seen a lot of this comparison that they say, well, President Obama has issued less executive orders than George W. Bush, Bill Clinton, and George Sr. But the thing that's different about the executive orders issued by President Obama is that they change statute, they change laws that were passed by Congress. And the president doesn't have that power under our Constitution. He has to go to Congress and ask Congress to change the laws. Congress is the one responsible for writing our laws. And the difference, I mean, it doesn't matter the number of the executive actions. It matters in the content and the force and effect and whether or not it's legal. And that's the argument against what President Obama is doing, like with the Dreamers. Back in the 2012 election cycle, the Dreamers, the president, just by executive fiat, said anyone who's in this country that was brought here as a child by their parents now has a legal standing of a legal immigrant, called the Dreamers. But he did that by executive fiat, and he literally changed our immigration laws. And President Bush and Clinton, they didn't change laws. Basically what the executive order is all about is to tell a specific branch of the government to do or not do a certain thing, but not to change the law. And that's the big difference. But you hear this from the liberals all the time. Well, President Obama hasn't had as many executive orders as the Bushes or Clinton, and that's not the point. The point is what President Obama is doing with the executive orders is way beyond the scope of the executive branch. That's the issue. And basically right now we're living under tyranny. We're living under a king. Because President Obama is talking about granting amnesty to another big group of people in the U.S. I mean, it's been leaked out that he's identified 5 million illegal aliens that he's going to actually give amnesty to by executive decree. And if he does that, that's going to set another precedent. That's going to encourage more people to leave their countries in South America and come to the U.S. And we're going to have an even bigger problem than we have now with all these illegal aliens. And it really does seem like a Clover and Piven type move to overload our social welfare system so that our economy collapses. It's hard not to think that that's not President Obama's motivation. All right, this is kind of an interesting story. I didn't see this coming. I'm really kind of surprised this actually happened. I got this story today from the Freedom Outpost. Don't tread on us. And this comes from France. About 19 hours ago, this story was posted by a guy named Tim Brown. And he says that France, the once atheist land, has really began to find a spine in recent weeks. I reported a little over a week ago that France had banned pro-Palestinian terror protest. And we reported that there's been pro-Palestinian protests all over Europe and the U.S. and Chicago. And France outlawed these pro-Palestinian terror protests. And they even levied stiff penalties for the violators. Now word is that France is opening up their borders for asylum to Christians suffering persecution from Islamists. from Syria and Iraq. And, I'm really surprised, and this is what they had to say. They said, we are providing aid to displaced people fleeing from the threats of Islamic State and who have sought refuge in Kurdistan, said France's foreign interior minister. The French government says it is ready to offer asylum to Iraqi citizens or Iraqi Christians forced to flee the Islamic militants in northern city of Mosul. Now, this is a really big deal because France also, remember, they outlawed the burqa. They said, no way can you wear a burqa in French society. And that was their first big move. And then the second big move was outlawing these pro-Palestinian demonstrations in France, and now announcing that they're going to allow for political asylum from people who are fleeing Islamic terrorism and Islamic war, basically. So this is France standing up to the world. This is France standing up to Islam. Now let's hope this gives some impetus to other European countries to start saying no to Sharia law. And we have some other stories today about radical Islam in Sweden. Oh, okay, here we go. I want to do this story. This is kind of a good story. It's kind of remedial education. But this is Milton Friedman and Phil Donahue on socialism versus capitalism. And I think this is arguably, that says here, the best explanation of the value of the free market over top-down government control of the economy. All right, here's Milton Friedman. The virtues of capitalism.
When you see around the globe the maldistribution of wealth, the desperate plight of millions of people in underdeveloped countries, when you see so few haves and so many have-nots, when you see the greed and the concentration of power with it, did you ever have a moment of doubt about capitalism and whether greed's a good idea to run on?
Well, first of all, tell me, is there some society you know that doesn't run on greed? You think Russia doesn't run on greed? You think China doesn't run on greed? What is greed? Of course, none of us are greedy. It's only the other fellow who's greedy. The world runs on individuals pursuing their separate interests. The great achievements of civilization have not come from government bureaus. Einstein didn't construct his theory under order from a bureaucrat. Henry Ford didn't revolutionize the automobile industry that way. In the only cases in which the masses have escaped from the kind of grinding poverty you're talking about, the only cases in recorded history are where they have had capitalism and largely free trade. If you want to know where the masses are worst off, it's exactly in the kinds of societies that depart from that. So that the record of history is absolutely crystal clear that there is no alternative way so far discovered of improving the lot of the ordinary people that can hold a candle to the productive activities that are unleashed by a free enterprise system.
But it seems to reward not virtue as much as ability to manipulate the system.
And what does reward virtue? You think the communist commissar rewards virtue? You think a Hitler rewards virtue? You think, excuse me, if you'll pardon me, do you think American presidents reward virtue? Do they choose their appointees on the basis of the virtue of the people appointed or on the basis of their political clout? Is it really true that political self-interest is nobler somehow than economic self-interest? You know, I think you're taking a lot of things for granted. And just tell me where in the world you find these angels who are going to organize society for us. Well, I don't even trust you to do that.
Hey! Is this my turn?
And,
You want me to sing now? Okay.
See, the way I like to talk about capitalism and socialism is looking at it from the standpoint of the psychological component of a human being. And most people are out there to look out for number one. And that is innate in most human beings. They want to go out there and they want to work hard, they want to take care of themselves, they want to pay their own way. And there are just some people that are made to make money. They work harder. They may be lucky. Maybe they did have money in their family. But regardless, human nature is to take care of yourself. Human nature is to make sure you have a nest egg, a little cache of food, a nice safe house around you, some creature comforts. And some people are harder workers than others. Some people are smarter. Some people are luckier. But socialism tries to even the playing field. But there's no such thing as fair and just when you're dealing with human beings. Some people are just luckier. Some people are just smarter. Some people work harder. And they should be able to keep the rewards of their efforts. But in socialism, what you're saying is that we are not all equal, that some people are smarter, yes, and that they ought to be the people that decide how the rest of us operate, decide on what we do, how we do it, when we do it, that somehow there ought to be a leadership class. That's socialism. It's top down. It's a controlled economy by the so-called elites, the intellectual crowd. But it ends up being the people that are politically connected. And they may be connected just because they're creepy, not because they actually are endowed with any special knowledge or ability. But it has to do with the fact that they're wealthy or they're connected. And remember, in all socialist societies, you still have rich people. And Russia is a pretty good example of socialism. All of the bureaucrats made more money than anyone else in the Soviet socialist economy, and they lived behind gated communities, walled communities. So you basically have created a caste system in socialism. But the invisible hand of capitalism, it actually works, supply and demand. You know, if there's not a demand for your product, then your company goes down. It's called creative destruction. But in government, nothing gets dismantled. Nothing gets canceled. Government just goes on into perpetuity, into forever. And then that takes a lot of resources out of the economy that could be used in more productive ways. So it's a waste. I mean, socialism it sounds good, it looks good on paper, but it never works. It might work in a microeconomy, like Sweden, but in a big, massive economy like the U.S. or Russia or China, it doesn't work. I mean, look at China. China now has turned their economy around. Why? Because they've adopted capitalist-type economic systems. And now things are flourishing. Having more faith in the individual works. And, you know, I'm not saying it's perfect, but, you know, out of all the forms of economies out there, capitalism does the most for people. It really does. Everybody wants to emulate our capitalist system because they can see the fruits of a capitalistic system. People thrive in a capitalistic system. When they're able to keep the fruits of their labor, it gives them motivation. It gives them a sense of worth. You know, it's like the community garden. The community garden, they never generally work because the whole community doesn't give the same amount of time to the effort of creating a community garden. It's always a handful of people that actually make the community garden grow, but then everybody wants to participate in in the fruits of those labors. Because people, it's a psychology. Some people don't want to work. And if you're going to give them the food for free, then that's what a lot of people are going to do. So the community garden ends up not working because the people that do all the work eventually get burned out. It's just basic psychology. Alright, now here's this story, and I decided to do it because I've seen a lot of stories out there on this particular subject, and I'm not really sure what to believe. This is from Natural News, and they're claiming here in an article written by Mike Adams that the right to farm is being stripped from America. And in Michigan, to criminalize small family farms with chickens, goats, honey, bees, and more. Now they're claiming here in the Natural News, in the latest stunning assault on Americans' right to grow their own food, the freedom-crushing state of Michigan has ruled that local governments, cities, towns, and counties can now ban any animal they wish from small residential farms. The move opens the door to the mass criminalization of backyard farms and small residential farming operations where people might keep a few goats or honeybees for food security. Now, I kind of have mixed feelings about this. I mean, if you're living in a suburban setting and your neighbor has some pigs or chickens and they make noise and they stink, that's kind of a problem. But I don't think that anyone should be forbidden from turning their backyard into a victory garden. But whether or not every individual ought to be able to have a chicken coop is kind of another thing. It says some homesteaders in Michigan could find themselves in a complete regulatory limbo because of the commissioner's action. Blogger, writer, organic farmer Michelle Dietrich does not know if she'll be able to keep her livestock because about half her 80-acre farm may not be zoned for farm animals. Now here's another example though. Now this woman has a 80-acre tract of land. I would think that she'd be able to have a few farm animals and that she'd be able to do some pretty intensive farming. But, I think that probably, here it says, Michigan, the DNR previously ordered small local farmer to shoot his own pigs. I remember that story. Because they were the wrong race of pigs. But once you get the government involved in deciding what people can do with their land, the land use laws, you can get in a situation where these bureaucrats can really get out of hand. Like we reported early on in the program. Why should these bureaucrats adhere to the Constitution when the president doesn't? And I'm pretty sure I read this article, and I kind of get the feeling that they're kind of overreacting a little bit here. But you know what? We did reports like 2 years ago about how the federal government was going into these organic stores and arresting people because they were selling milk that wasn't pasteurized. I don't know. We'll have to keep an eye on this story. Alright, where are we? We're at the bottom of the hour. If you want to call into the program, you can do so. Dial 646-716-8506. My name's Daniel Gray. I'm the Trailer Park Prophet, broadcasting live on Blog Talk Radio from beautiful downtown Cresttown, Colorado. Thanks again for being here. Alright, next story. This is a rather shocking story. I got this from the Liberty News Online. Now, this story is not going to be in the lamestream media, but it's a big story in my mind. And it was published on the 2nd of August. And the headline reads, Jihad in Sweden. Police lured into ambush, stoned by hundreds of Muslims. Tonight, the immigrant population in Stockholm's suburb of Rinkeby was awakened by riots. Around 200 people took part in throwing stones at police. Cars were set on fire and shots were fired. Police received a first alarm shortly before 11 p.m. on Wednesday night. A car had been set on fire. When police arrived at the area, they were met with stone throwers, prompting them to retreat and wait for reinforcements in order to go back into the warlike zone again. The police do not know what caused the unrest. And they said here in a quote, the common thread has been that car drivers refused to stop when the police ordered them to. Once they stopped, people gathered around the cars and attacked the police. The police have been forced to retreat, call in reinforcements. They already said that. This is just a quote. But at any rate, here's a story that is talking about creeping Sharia law and radical Islamists, man, just taking it to our civilization bit by bit, piece by piece, scaring the bejeebers out of people into being passive to Islam. Okay, here we got an interesting story here from Alex Jones. He's an interesting guy. He's kind of a bomb thrower. And the headline is that Alex Jones exposes the connection between open borders and the impending possible Ebola epidemic. How easily this disease can now come through our facility. And I talked about this a while back. I go, man, I mean, I know this is kind of diabolical, but can you imagine if our detractors, our foes, actually are considering sending people into the U.S. through our southern border that have diseases in the hope of infecting or creating an epidemic in the United States? And here I got something from Drudge. Oh, let's see. CDC refuses to identify where the previous Ebola infected people actually came from. So there may be more than 2 people now in the U.S. that actually have Ebola. We might want to check on that story. So let's give a listen here to Alex Jones, see what he has to talk about in regards to our open border with Mexico.
And finally tonight, we look deeper at the other angles surrounding the global pandemic that is the Ebola outbreaks of 2014. First off, it's important to understand that we have a long history, not just here in the U.S., but with other Western governments, including the Japanese, of secret, lethal, chemical, biological, and radiological testing on populations. So governments have been caught producing weaponized pathogens, both bacterial and viral, and releasing them on their own populations, not just populations that they're having wars with. And this goes to really the whole mad scientist type system that we've seen pop up in the psychology of scientific elites throughout history. This is not the exception, this is the rule. That whether it was the Soviets or the Japanese or the Communist Chinese or the Imperial Chinese or the South Africans or the Mexican government or the U.S. government, they're constantly testing lethal pathogens on their own populations and claiming it's for resource purposes. The general population is seen as animals or as slaves. So this is part of that larger debate. There's a lot of evidence linking the development of Ebola, and when it first began to show up on the scenes in the last 40 years, to Western bioweapons laboratories that were on the Gold Coast, the western coast of Africa. And then, by 2002, tens of billions of dollars were spent for a program called BioShield, And under the cover of creating cures for biological weapons or treatments, they built bioweapons labs all over the United States, including in populated areas, despite protest, like at the University of Texas in Galveston, right where hurricanes hit, and didn't even put the deadly pathogens in containment facilities underground. They did it in level 2 facilities. That's just like bringing Ebola-infected patients to general hospitals. It is a crime. So the question is, why are they so reckless? Now we see 2 different members of the medical community who are U.S. citizens being brought back to a major university hospital in Atlanta, not in a level 3 or 4 bioweapons lab where it might be able to be contained, but just under plastic inside of a regular medical facility with part of a wing sealed off. These hospitals can't even control flesh-eating bacteria, MRSA, drug-resistant strep, and other things. So they certainly can't contain Ebola. And about 2 years ago, top scientists came out, and I'm going to show you some of these articles coming out, and said, look, Ebola appears to be actually airborne. Now, it's not hardy airborne. It doesn't last a long time in the air, but it does appear in monkey and pig studies to be transferable between different species, but also between the same species. And Ebola appears to be getting stronger and to be mutating. So why is our government shipping people into the U.S. that have Ebola and who can spread it? Now, Ebola can take a while to show up, too, so it's perfect to infect somebody and then bring them in if you want to spread it. And even if only a few hundred people died in the U.S. from Ebola, and they think as many as 33,000 could be infected worldwide right now, around 1,000 deaths. I know of thousands that are infected, but over 30,000, they believe, with the models that have come in contact with it, they believe that it could easily end up breaking out here in the U.S. And just the hype and the fear from that would be crippling for the economy, but would allow Homeland Security and other globalist control systems to clamp down medical-wise and have forced inoculations and things and bring another level of tyranny to the United States like 9/11 did. Now let's look at the big issue. Al-Qaeda is real, IS is real, ISIS is real, and the globalists running our government and NATO have been giving them chemical weapons to attack Syria, have been giving them the precursors of biological weapons so that they could be able to basically produce them. Just like our own government, after 2001 even, was still giving Saddam Hussein things like anthrax. Look that up. So if they ever wanted to release it and blame him, they could say that he had it. So here's the latest leaked Border Patrol high-level report, shows entire world exploiting open U.S. border. But in the report, and Drudge pointed this out today, showed at Infowars.com, you notice that of the thousands, 874 that came in from Nigeria alone and got caught, they think they only catch a fraction, so it's actually more than 874.
1 in every 10.
People coming in from Nigeria, Sierra Leone, and countless other areas. Just 874 from one country alone in the last year that they caught. And here's our headline breaking it down. Ebola may have already crossed border, secret Border Patrol report shows. There's no doubt feds are shipping illegals from Ebola-hit countries across the U.S. at taxpayer expense. CDC concerned about airborne transmission of Ebola virus, Infowars.com. And our report links to the CDC and to mainline medical journals that were saying 2 years ago it appears to now be airborne. Did you hear that? In fact, here's the article from 2 years ago. From pigs to monkeys, Ebola goes airborne. And this report from healthmap.org gives all the links to the CDC and other studies and statements on that front. Now, doctors that have come in from Africa that were even around Ebola have been self-quarantining, and they've been basically asking, Zero Hedge has an article out on it, why weren't we quarantined to begin with? That's federal law. So the issue here, there's a lot of issues, but one of the big issues here is why aren't they doing normal quarantine procedures on doctors that were treating people that are coming back?
All right, we got some breaking news on this Ebola outbreak that I want to get to. This is from Drudge. This is a report that just got released out there into the internet. And it says the CDC, that's the Center for Disease Control, hides Ebola test locations. CDC refuses to identify where previous Ebola tests originated. And, you know, here again, you know, this goes back to what we were talking about before. It's really ironic that the two Americans that got brought in from Africa that had the Ebola, that there was actually a vaccine that was given to these two individuals, so that the, you know, it seems like that the CDC actually did have a vaccination for Ebola. But, you know, again, are they keeping it from people in Africa so that more people die in Africa? You know, I mean, that's the question we talked about on Monday. And you got to ask yourself, man, what in the world is going on? And as the government gets bigger and bigger and bigger, they're able to keep secrets from the people. And you wonder if the, you know, the eugenics crowd, the progressive socialist status out there that think there's too many people on planet Earth, that they could be working in the shadows and figuring out ways to create a pandemic to wipe out some of the population in the U.S. I mean, basically, that's what's happening in Africa. More people are dying from Ebola because we don't make the vaccine available to them. You know, it's just like DDT that kills mosquitoes. That got outlawed, and what that did was it has caused the death and suffering of people all over Africa. DDT kills mosquitoes. And you have to ask yourself, okay, what's worse? Having DDT that might affect or cause some environmental problems, which there's a big body of science says that it doesn't, that DDT is safe. I remember seeing a video of an executive that sold DDT, and he drank a glass of DDT in front of a congressional committee. But you know, this idea that some progressive socialist statists have, that we need to reduce the population of the United States by any means necessary, and you wonder, wow, I mean, are all these things related? I don't know, but all I can do is beg the question. Okay, back to the regular program. Again, you're listening to Daniel Gray. I'm the Trailer Park Prophet, broadcasting live on Blog Talk Radio from beautiful downtown Crestone, Colorado. And we just did a piece from, what's his name? He's got a good voice. I like his voice. Not Alex Gibbs. What's his name? Oh, wait, doesn't matter. Anyways, here's, let's see. We missed this story. Here's Alan West. I want to do this. I like Alan West. Doesn't look like we're going to get all the stories done today that I hoped. But this is from Capitalism Institute in Defense of Life, Liberty, and Property. And it says here that there are many people who believe that Obamacare was designed to fail. From the start, they believe that the law is only a vehicle to be used to bring about a socialist single-payer system run by the government. Retired Lieutenant Colonel and former Congressman Alan West is one of those people, and he says that Obamacare was designed to destroy our republic. West points to many lies Obama told the American people to sell the law, the Obamacare law, and says that Obama has defrauded the American people. Furthermore, he says that since Obama is a liar and a disgrace, that he should resign. And I mean, I really like Alan West. Boy, he doesn't pull any punches. And he was on Greta recently, Greta Van Susteren, and he was talking about Obamacare and the other far-reaching executive actions of the President of the United States. So here we got Alan West here. Take it away, sir. Welcome back to the Trailer Park Prophet Show.
Tonight, former Congressman Alan West says President Obama is a dangerous threat to the existence of America. Why? Alan West is here to tell you in just a minute.
He and his party are the sole destroyers of the American healthcare system.
I'm going to keep doing everything in my power to make sure this law works as it's supposed to. Because in the United States of America, health insurance isn't a privilege, it's your right. And we're going to keep it that way.
The number one concern of Americans remains Obamacare.
It is Obama and the Democrats have turned the American people, particularly when it comes to health care, into servants of government.
The American people wanted health care reform because they wanted affordable care. And what we're seeing under this health care law is that the cost of care is actually going up.
Because in the United States of America, health insurance isn't a privilege, it's your right.
There are many conservatives, like myself, standing up and saying, look, Obamacare is going to be a disaster for the country.
Because in the United States of America, health insurance isn't a privilege, it's your right.
As I travel around Kentucky and around the country, people come up to me and they say, stand firm, stand up, try to stop this monstrosity because it's going to be bad for the country.
I can tell you there was a popular position at my town halls. It's that Obamacare shouldn't go forward.
The fact of the matter...
Oh, shoot, there's an error occurred. We might not get to hear it. All right. Congress.
The vast majority of American people oppose this plan. They don't want Obamacare.
I'm going to keep doing everything in my power to make sure this law works as it's supposed to. Because in the United States of America, health insurance isn't a privilege, it's your right. And we're going to keep it that way.
Apparently, former Congressman Alan West is not impressed with what the president said about health insurance being a right. He calls President Obama, quote, a very dangerous threat to the existence of America. Congressman West joins us. Nice to see you, sir.
It's a pleasure. Now, you got one thing wrong.
What's that?
It's America is a constitutional republic. That was the entire sentence that I used. And that's a very important thing to understand because, first of all, we should not have a president that's demagoguing a entirely different group of people, the Republicans, to say that they want to actually hurt people just because they disagree with the policy. But when you have a president that is standing there saying that health care, health insurance is a right, when you go back and you read the Declaration of Independence, and I'm going to put on my little geeky political philosophy hat, Thomas Jefferson said that the unalienable rights that we have of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness as individuals, they come from the Creator. And that goes back to natural law theory. He said that specifically that they don't come from man, and man makes up government. Now, all of a sudden, the government believes that they're the ones that grant you your rights. Government can also take those rights away, which is why Jefferson said, a government that is big enough to give you everything that you want is also big enough to take it away. And think about this, Greta. The last time we had a president talk about the American people as individuals having a right to a certain thing, it was back in about 1978 when Jimmy Carter said that every American had a right to own a home, and that was the Community Reinvestment Act. And you fast forward 30 years later to 2008, we had this incredible financial meltdown based upon the mortgage industry and government getting involved in that industry.
Let me ask you about sort of the tone or the temperature of your words. Sometimes I get going and say things that I want to sort of dial back later. You say that he's a dangerous threat to the existence of America. Is that just Congressman Alan West sort of getting on a roll, or is that genuinely what you believe, that he's a dangerous threat to the existence of America?
And I say it as a constitutional republic, because once again...
Tell me what you mean as a
constitutional republic, because you have to look at the rule of law. You have to look at our founding documents. And when you have a president that is saying that, you know, a certain thing is a right that government is supposed to give to you, that goes against the founding premise of this country as well. You know, I quoted in that Facebook post the book by Montesquieu, The Spirit of the Laws, that talked about the separation of powers and checks and balances. The president should not be able to delay certain parts of law. He should not be able to push away certain mandates or this cap on the out-of-pocket expenses. Because once a piece of legislation has passed through the House, has passed through the Senate, is signed into law by the president, you don't get to cherry pick it. And that's a threat to us as a constitutional republic when a president is starting to cherry pick law.
Well, that seems to be going on, quite routinely. There have been a number of things they've talked about, the health care, and I'm going to be talking in a moment about all the delays that are coming up. But different things have been cherry picked, like the employer mandate, that was put off for a year. The cap on how much people on out-of-pocket expenses, that has been postponed. That was given. So there is some cherry picking going on. Is there anyone besides Congressman Alan Alan West, who is sort of, is raising this.
All right, I want to get into a couple more stories here before we conclude for the day. I love Alan West. I think he's absolutely right. Obama is a threat to our constitutional republic, and it is important to understand the difference between a democracy and a constitutional republic. Other stories that I want to report on, and then we're going to end up with News Busted. Jimmy Carter just wrote a op-ed piece in the New Yorker, I believe it was. It was co-authored by a former president of Ireland, and basically Jimmy Carter says that Hamas ought to be recognized by the United Nations as a legitimate government. And, I'm going to repeat this, but Hamas got elected to run the government of the Gaza that's at war with Israel, but then they never had another election. And that's why they're not a legitimate government. And so for Jimmy Carter to say that Hamas is a legitimate government is wholly inappropriate. That's wrong. They got into power, and now there's no more elections. That's not a legitimate government. And there's more and more information. There's a story that we don't have time to do today that Obama has been directing funds to the ISIS. That's the radical Islamic group funded by Saudi Arabia that is wreaking havoc in Syria and Iraq. And we've reported on this before, and it's obvious that this administration, this Obama administration, has been directing funds to radical Islamist group. I mean, we just talked about how they got $33 million directed to Hamas. And there's every indication. Oh, and the other thing, too, about ISIS, they are creating havoc in Iraq and Syria. And we found out here, I read an article that the Obama administration had an opportunity and was being asked by the Maliki government in Iraq to use our drones to attack some of these ISIS armies. And the Obama administration refused to do that. And also the other news out of Iraq, too, is ISIS is trying to take over these two big major dams in Iraq. And the fear is that they're going to blow the dams up, and then that would flood out Mosul and flood out, I believe, Baghdad. So it would just turn Iraq into a big disaster area. And it would be, and the thing is, the ISIS, they're Sunnis. No, wait, are they Sunnis or Shiites? Yeah, they're Sunnis, and if they blow up one of those dams in Iraq, it'll wipe out Shiites. And we'll have to see if they'll go to that level. But, well, I mean, we reported ISIS. They've been blowing up all these statues that were built 118 years ago. So if they're going to destroy artifacts like that, you got to wonder if they wouldn't also be tempted to blow up a dam if it were to destroy their enemy, the Shiites. The Postal Service is bankrupt. No news there. But another story is that they're out there again. They don't have money to pay for all their extravagant retirement plans that postal workers get. So they're going to be in front of Congress shortly to ask to borrow some more money. Another teacher, I can't remember exactly where this was, had sex with two of her students. Al Sharpton owes the federal government some $4 million in back taxes. Funny how the Obama administration will go to the Bundy Ranch and demand that the Bundy get their cattle off of the BLM land for $1 million in back fees, grazing fees, which is a disputable actual standing or not. But then here's Al Sharpton, big time liberal progressive socialist status, and he owes $4 million, and doesn't seem like much is happening to him. The new mayor of Houston happens to be a lesbian, and she by decree decided that all the bathrooms in Houston are now going to be unisex by decree. You know, so here again, you know, why should the mayor have to follow the Constitution when the president does it? But, you know, this is what really kind of bugs me about liberals. You know, they get into office and they act like kings, you know, or queens. And, you know, I mean, I don't have any problem with having a mayor, a lesbian mayor, but, you know, when they come in here and they try and do stuff by decree rather than going through the Houston City Council, you know, it's disturbing. All right, I promised that we would end the show on a positive note. This is from News Busted. And let's see, I can't remember what they're talking about Jimmy Carter. And Jimmy Carter found out that now he's no longer the worst president ever, that in fact now it's Barack Hussein Obama. So this will be kind of a funny way to end the show. If I can get this thing to post up here, we'll play this for you. We always get a big kick out of News Busted. This woman is really funny that does this program. I'm trying to remember where it comes from, News Busted, but I don't know, I can't remember. All right, here we are. And take it away, News Busted. Welcome back to the Trailer Park Profit Show. All right, it's got a...
Hey everybody, welcome to News Busted. I'm Jody Miller. Let's get started. A recent poll shows Americans think President Obama is the worst president since World War II. And when he heard the news, Jimmy Carter totally gave himself a high five. America has overtaken Saudi Arabia as the world's biggest oil-producing country. Wow. And you thought liberals hated America before. On a recent trip to the Mexican border, Democrat Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee brought lollipops to give away to illegal immigrant children. She had planned on bringing voter registration forms, but those were still at the printer.
Oh, man.
A new European law allows people to remove their names from negative news stories on Google. So you know what that means. In Europe, you can no longer Google any stories about Joe Biden. Black unemployment is now twice that of white Americans. And today, Kanye West just said, Barack Obama doesn't care about black people. Tyler Perry just won the right to trademark the phrase, what would Jesus do? Hey, I know what Jesus wouldn't do. He wouldn't trademark the phrase, what would Jesus do?
Good point.
And finally, Burger King has introduced a new gay pride Whopper sandwich. It's just like a regular Whopper, but if you choose not to order one, you're immediately accused of a hate crime. Thanks for watching News Busted, everybody. I'm Jody Miller. Make sure to tell your friends about it. We'll catch you next time.
All right, everybody. Time to get out of here. This is Daniel Gray. I'll see you on Friday for Loco Friday. Again, thanks a lot for being here. I really appreciate it. Have any kind of day you want. And remember, keep it classy. Adios, amigos.